I'm very curious about your shooting form.
You got some proprietary information right now.
He do it worse than me. It's almost like he's like literally flicking the ball.
Do you jump on it, the deep three?
Yeah.
So that,
but I see it's way more arms.
It's a jump. I jump. I don't jump.
I try to treat my craft of shooting as any sort of habit that I would have. And I try to do it every single day the same.
It's that old cliche, no shot I've tried in the game I haven't tried in practice before.
They say, oh, you have a great step back, and since then I've been doing the step back.
The craziest shot that I could imagine is the Ray Allen shot, running backwards, getting his feet.
the footwork as a shooter is as important as anything else.
For whatever reason, that just kind of stuck with me. That's just kind of how I shoot it. As an off-the-dribble move, it's a great move, I think.
It was the best shooting night of my career.
Unbelievable. Baby.
He literally gets all his shooting power, I would say a lot of the forces right there in his wrists and fingers.
I think as far as the biggest shot ever hit, Kyrie has the biggest shot.
Because it's a crazy shot. It is such a ballsy shot.
I say flow state, and just being in that flow is exactly where I want to be. And when you're in that, there's no better feeling.
There was a video circulating after the 3-point contest at All-Star. Did you see this video?
Yeah, where my fingers was off the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that normal? That's how you...
I've always...
If we all broke it down. Do you feel that? When you learned how to shoot, you were not conscious of that?
The weird thing is, when I learned how to shoot, I didn't shoot that way. But when I was I think when I was 10 years old, my dad used to get on my ass about you got to shoot off your fingertips. You shooting a knuckleball. Because my dad shoots he's the only other person I've ever seen shoot like that. When he shoots, the ball is off it. But he do it worse than me. It's almost like he's literally flicking the ball.
Yeah.
But he we was at the park one day and he was just you got to shoot off your fingertips. That ball ain't got no rotation. And I'm like, how do you shoot like that? So he was like, look, it got to come off your fingertips. So I started shooting the ball that's how I could
briefly
get rotation on the ball.
Off, and then just the flick.
Yeah, I would just roll it off like that. And then I just started, once I started really working at it and shooting, and once you get a certain amount of reps, I don't even feel it no more.
When we asked you about your range 149 episodes ago, you talked a little bit about your lower body.
Yeah.
And the work you do on your glutes and hamstrings and all that, and your core.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where your power come from. I have hypothesized that some of it comes from the fact that you shoot with your palm.
Yeah.
Do you think there's some truth to that?
I don't really think so. I think everything plays a part, but I think the way that I train is definitely a big part of it. And I think my shooting motion, I keep going back to my training because I think that's what it all comes down to for me. But learning, I always could shoot, but learning to shoot in one motion and have a full shot where I dip, my momentum from the dribble to the dip is all one motion and it's all going into one full shot. I think that with the strength and all those other things is what makes it an easy shot for me.
Yeah.
Do you have any of your, I was thinking buzzer beaters, but they could be any of your crazy shots? And we talk about this with Steph too, where you two are basically the guys who feels like every couple of weeks you will make some shot where everyone else is just what the fuck? No, there's no one else on the planet who could do that. Do you have any of those that you've done that you were even surprised by yourself?
I think it was this year warm up. Nobody got it, but nobody got a video of that. It was I threw it all the way up there and it bounced and it went in. But I was asking for a video for 1 week and nobody had it. I was like, what? I said it was the greatest shot I ever made. But nobody got it.
This is what I'm talking about.
That's the worst.
This is what I'm talking about, though. You're at play. You're at play.
Well,
you had the shot. You had the shot. What was the shot? Was that the same shot that you would practice? What's the shot you used to do? Oh, Dwight Powell would throw you a ball and you would try to shoulder it in, and you finally made it.
No, I made this a couple times now.
Yeah, because I watched you miss that shot a lot.
No,
like 33 times, something like
No,
33 times.
No, I was just practicing.
The Memphis, when you were there at that point, the buzzer beater against Memphis last year.
Yeah, the floater.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was pretty crazy.
From 3.
Yeah, that was. I think that was lucky a little bit, but that's a tough shot, I would say. But I think my favorite buzzer beater was, my second year. It was against Portland. It was 0.7 on the clock, and we're down 3. And I got the corner shot, and I made it. I think that was the toughest shot.
You mentioned creativity earlier, and I've said this about you. I mean this, like, as an observer, I have not seen a basketball player consistently get to a flow state better than you. Are there exercises you do? Is it your training? Like, how are you able to capture that? We talked about the look away shot. That's being in flow state, right?
Yeah.
Not many people ever get to that. You get to that so consistently.
I mean, you got some proprietary information right now. I feel like most of it is.
I feel like Brandon Payne can give me this.
He's going to clip the hell out of this because I was where I was going. Because a part of the training, and anybody who's watched me train in the summers, or how I approach even in season skill work and all that, like there's a level of obsession about the details when it comes to footwork, when it comes to balance, when it comes to how the ball's entering the bat, like the rim at the right angle, arc, and all that type of stuff. There's a legit, obsession around that. And I feel like that's been developed over the course of my life, but also, year 2 in the league, where I really understood the unlock that can be there in terms of, one, it like you said, kind of being creative about how I can play, visualizing, stuff that maybe I've never done before, and then trying it in a skill session or practice or whatnot. That confidence that comes behind that is it's intoxicating. And then you get in the game and you kind of lose yourself in that. And then you go back to the drawing board and you keep doing that over and over and over again. And I'm in my 14th year and I'm still doing it. And so it's that old like cliche, like no shot I've tried in the game I haven't tried in practice before. It's pretty accurate. Like I might even not had 4 cones, 4 guys around to do that move, but I've done that dribble combination before.
Maybe you said the word autopilot, and I thought that was super interesting, where something like that appears to be spontaneous.
For sure. And it's muscle memory, and it's you've gotten your body and your mind connected before in that regard, and then it comes out when the lights are bright. So like you said, my guy B Payne's had a lot to do with that in terms of taking my work ethic and my willingness to get in the gym and push the envelope, being creative with me on that front. Even now, got a guy called Bergstrom who's helped me work on my body and get strong, work on my core, all the things that can take my game to the next level at the biggest stages in the playoffs when things slow down and you get into that physical tug of war match out there. So it's always a continued reiteration, which is why I still feel like in my 14th year, I'm still getting better, still getting more efficient, and finding ways to improve, even though, history says you should be going the other way. So, I say flow state, and like just being in that flow is exactly, how it's where I want to be. And when you're in that, there's no better feeling.
And I know you also love art, and I've also seen quotes from you where you talk about basketball as a way to sort of express yourself. There's a couple of things that have happened on the court over the last year that I want to specifically ask you about. One of which is the one-legged 3. Why? Is it necessary? It doesn't seem necessary. You're so tall.
It's actually easier to shoot threes that way, I believe, because you use your momentum, so you don't get to put any force, so you can like really focus on the target. But it's just something that doesn't happen often in the court, that situation, that movement. But so a couple of years back, I was training with Tim Martin, you know, my coach, and I was doing that, and I was doing reps of this, and he was laughing like, you know, it's because it's just funny to see someone practice this, and but it just feels natural to me, and I think when you know off the dribble, like as an off the dribble move, it's a great move. I believe, you know, because and it's surprising to the defender, you know, he doesn't because you don't really got like a gather. It's just you just go straight up, and it's just surprising to the defender. I mean, even for regular size players, you can't really defend that.
So basically, the genesis of that is you were fucking around one day, shooting one-legged threes, or you said you were fucking around. You're like, oh, that feels natural.
Yeah,
that feels natural.
Yeah.
Maybe I can use this, and you just started practicing. Yeah. It's incredible. Quick side story. I'm going to make it about myself for a second. So when we were in China, for that trip, the first night we got there, we practiced, and then after practice, I set up this dinner at I think it was a Joel Robuchon restaurant. A friend of mine was the maitre d' there in Shanghai. So probably like 10 guys came with their wives. I bought all the wine. It was a very expensive meal, and then we went out to like a bar afterwards, and I think between the alcohol and some sea urchin I had at the restaurant, I just wasn't feeling well the next day, and so I got sick. They sent me home from practice. I stayed in my bed for like 24 hours, did not touch a ball, did not leave my bed, and then we played you guys the first game, and I hit 10 for 10. It was the best shooting night of my career.
Sea urchin, baby. Sea urchin. And you've been eating sea urchin ever since, right?
No, I can't even. The thought of sea urchin just makes my stomach churn.
Hey, leave it to JJ to have the best night of his career in an exhibition game in China.
Yeah, there you go. You mentioned Steph Curry and the Houston Rockets and the proliferation of three-point shooting as a big change on the court in your time in the NBA. And I was actually looking up some of your, I wouldn't call them advanced stats, but I spent a good amount of time today on Basketball Reference. And the young guys who watch the NBA, the young fans, may not remember the prolific mid-range shooter that was Al Horford in the early 2010s. And in 2015, you shot a career high. 3.7% of your shots were threes. You're now at 65.9% of your shots are threes. And there was actually a jump there from 15 to 16 where you would take in 0.5, 0.4 threes a game, whatever. And all of a sudden in 16, you took over threes a game. Was there someone in your ear about this? Did you naturally sort of develop the three-point shot and you said, maybe I can extend? Like, I'm very curious about this evolution of yourself as a shooter.
So when I first got in the league, I never dreamed of shooting threes. And I've talked about this, but I used to watch Joe Johnson, take threes, and I was like, man, like it's unbelievable. It seems so far, like there's just no way. And my first few years in the league, I was straight post-up player. I shot some mid-range, but I had a very physical game, and I was an undersized center. I'm an undersized center if you look at it. And I got injured in 2011. 2012, beginning of 2012. That was that lockout year. And that we had that condensed season. And I remember at the time with the Hawks, Rick Sund was our GM. And he sat me down probably a month after the surgery, and he said, like, listen, the way that you're playing the game, it's, you want to play physical, you want to bang down low, but he was like, your body's not going to hold up. And he was like, I've seen you shoot the ball. I feel like you can shoot, you could shoot the corner three. And he was like, he had Sam Perkins in Seattle, I believe it was. And he was like, that extended his career. He was able to play a little longer. And I think you should start working on that. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll see. And I when I started coming back, I started working on the corner threes a little bit. And then we went through a transition in Atlanta where Danny Ferry came in, Coach Budenholzer came in, and his staff, and Kenny Atkinson was one of the assistants that worked with me. And between Coach Bud and Kenny Atkinson, they really gave me the confidence to shoot the threes. They wanted me to shoot them from everywhere. They wanted me to be aggressive. And I had two teammates that were key for me, and it was Kyle Korver. That always encouraged me early on when it was like, when other teams would see me shoot threes, they're like, what is he doing? Like, because it just wasn't something that it didn't look natural. Like it was, just wasn't used to it. So in games, so Kyle was always encouraging me. And then Pero Antic, I don't know if you remember him. So he played with us in Atlanta for a few years. And Pero, I used to watch Pero. Like I would just sit in practice and watch him after, just seeing him shoot shot after shot. And he just wasn't afraid to let him go. And I'm just looking at him and I'm like, man, if he can do it, I think I can too. So that was key for me to have that support around me and give me that confidence. And then, at that point, when you have a coach that trusts in you and that gives you confidence, that was all I needed. And from that point on, I just started shooting them more and more, and my confidence grew.
We should note Al is shooting 45.3% as of this recording right now. I put a jinx on Derek White when he was on the podcast. I'm going to
the Celtics fans were not happy for the following 2
There's
weeks.
no jinx here. I'm just pointing out his percentage. That's all I'm doing. I'm talking about the growth of Al Horford as a three-point shooter. That's all. It's interesting that you bring up the importance of Bud in this, and not that Brooke started shooting threes a little bit before he went to Milwaukee, but I do find that sort of connection and correlation fascinating, that Bud had such an influence on that, giving you confidence. And now, we see Brooke, obviously he still mashes a little bit in the post and on the offensive glass, but he is a spacer, and that's so important for their offensive sets with Giannis having the basketball. I'm very curious about your shooting form and how you learned, because your guide hand is in a place that I don't think anyone would ever naturally teach someone to shoot. And I mean no offense by that.
Yeah. No, that's, and it's funny. So I learned how to shoot. Like I started shooting, growing up in DR in Dominican. I was there until I was 14, and we used to shoot, and I didn't really know how to shoot that well per se. And when I moved to the U.S., a good friend of our family, he's a basketball coach, and he's teaching me how to shoot. And it always, for whatever reason, I always started grabbing the ball that way, and it always used to bother him a lot. And he's like, "Listen, you got to move that left hand out of there and do it like this." And he's trying to show me how to do it. And I just kept going to it naturally. It wasn't like I was trying to do it on purpose, but like I just kind of kept, moving that hand over. And for many years since then, different coaches, different people have tried to have me move it. And from time to time, I do move it. But for whatever reason, that just kind of stuck with me. And that's just kind of how I shoot it. And I just try to make sure that I don't get it in the way too much.
It's a gentle touch. It's a gentle guide hand touch.
45% is 45%.
The numbers don't lie.
The one thing that I will say about like the Kyrie shot, because I think the Kyrie shot is the second biggest shot ever hit.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
Right? I think the Ray Allen shot, because the series is going to be over if he doesn't make that shot. The series is over. Right? Time is running out. They had ropes around. They had champagne in the Spurs locker room, and then they win Game 7.
James catches, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
So that shot, because from a standpoint of the series is over, Kyrie misses a shot, score still tied, whatever. But I think as far as the biggest shot ever hit, Kyrie has the biggest shot. But I think the most important, the craziest shot that I could imagine is the Ray Allen shot, running backwards, getting his feet.
The two that jump out, modern NBA, my viewership,
starting with the 91 finals, the two that jump out were the Paxson 3 against the Suns, the Kerr jump shot against the Jazz. Both those were Game 6 closeouts when the Bulls were up 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, I agree with you. The Ray Allen shot and the Kyrie shot are as two in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two biggest shots ever.
So I have to bring this up just because he's going to get mad. And we talked about this with Pascal, but the shot.
Yeah.
Kawhi's shot. When it was happening, what was your initial thought once the ball was inbounded?
Well, I mean, a couple things. Like, I felt okay, like, about the whole situation, right? I mean, I think that series was a toss up. I mean, obviously, right? 7 games. And I'd kind of figured that we'd played well, right? It was a weird series. There was a couple really bad games in there. They'd blow us out. We'd blow them out. They'd blow us up. Then there was some great games. I thought in that particular game, I was okay if it went to overtime. I thought we had a good feel of the game. So when he came off there, it was okay. I mean, I was just hoping he was going to squeeze something off and not. He'd had a bunch of looks this year, and he hadn't really made many, and he was due to get lucky on one. And lucky did he get.
There was actually a shot early in the season, maybe December, against the Portland Trailblazers, where he was shooting over a smaller player. He wasn't shooting over Joel, and he was probably at 15, 16 feet and not 20 feet at the end of the game, and it went in. Very similar shot. The guy has an unnatural spin on the ball or something because both of those shots looked like they were going to be short.
Yep, he does. He really, I mean, you've seen the size of his hands, I'm sure, and the strength in them and the way he snaps his wrist. I mean, he literally gets all his shooting power just, I would say a lot of the forces right there in his wrists and fingers makes that thing really turn.
One of the things when you first became the head coach and certainly in your time as an assistant with the Raptors, one of the things you guys tried to do was shoot more threes. And I had a long conversation with Draymond last week just about the evolution of three-point shooting in the NBA. And I played on that Magic team that made the finals, 4 out, 1 in. The previous iteration of that was the Phoenix Suns. If you look at those teams now and the amount of threes we shot, we'd be last in the league.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And Steph certainly is a supernova. He's one of one, a generational talent. But the league, by and large, is now heavy on attacking the rim and shooting threes. Offensively, do you see the next evolution of offensive basketball, or is it just small tweaks? Are we in this sort of 3-point revolution for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, for sure. I think that everybody is now on board. You talk about where you guys would place, and it was outlandish the number you shot, and now it'd be like, even like the pace of the game. The Suns, remember the run and gun Suns with Nash? They'd be 30th in pace right now. Because when there's 2 teams going, it changes. But I think so. I mean, I think that we're going to see the high volume of threes, but I do see a little bit of a movement back of certain teams to continue to work for the non-paint twos. And I think that, I thought last year was the biggest change in regular season physicality, not very much of it, to playoff physicality, a lot of it. And then all of a sudden, well, what happens? Guys can't beat guys off the dribble so easy, which means not as much paint shrinkage, and then, not as many kickouts are there and guys are back on them. The number of made threes in the playoffs was down considerably to the regular season. It always is, but so I do think that the physicality gets back into the game a bit, and you can't do anything but shoot the non-paint twos. You got to get it to your guys that can score buckets and get out of the way.
We were talking about this on the way over here. It's like, this is 2 of the best shooters of the last 50 plus years basketball in the world, and then you see Steph Curry do this. Like, we talked about it at the time. We talked about it with Draymond, and we talked about it at the time when it happened. Of like, just like, whoa, like this is almost different than anything that we've done.
It's unheard of. Like he messed up the game in a good way, you know? Like
you think he messed it up in a good way?
Yeah. Like he definitely is. I think he hurt the youth because the youth just loves threes, and that's all they think about doing is shooting threes. But you can just see, like in the league, just how we value the 3-point line now, right? And it's not just something that we just look at, you know, as a spacer. You know, we value it at all 5 positions. You need everybody to be able to shoot the 3 because that's a threat. Spaces the floor, be able to create some more drives for your guards. So I think, you know, him and Clay and their whole team, I think just changed the game in a good but bad way.
I was telling you before we started, my oldest has become obsessed with basketball, and you know, it's YouTube highlights. Started trading basketball cards, which got me into collecting basketball cards again too, which is a very weird thing. But I take him to the gym, or I take him to the park, you know, two or three times a week. And the first thing he wants to do is chuck a 3. Like, and he could barely get it there. Yeah. And he has to use a smaller ball, but like, that's what he wants to do. And I try to explain to him the value of form shooting.
Get up under the hoop.
Get under the hoop. And, you know, 10 minutes of form shooting, that's all you need, bud. But no, you're right. I think everybody wants to chuck threes. You mentioned the sort of evolution of the strategy around shooting and 3-pointers, and how having 5 guys that can shoot is so important. And the Mavs were a great example of that. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons they were able to beat the Jazz and beat the Suns and play with the Warriors. Like, they literally just put 5 people on the perimeter and allowed their guards to get in the paint, make plays, finish the rim. Jalen, you know, getting downhill, Luka getting downhill. And I think that's like one way that 3-point shooting has evolved. Yeah. But I was thinking about, like, specifically with you and your sort of development as a shooter, you know, because, you know, when I first got in the league, like, you shot catch and shoot threes, spot up threes. And now it's out of the pick and roll, it's step backs and all that stuff. And I'm curious when you started really feeling comfortable with that part of your game.
It's still growing. But I would say that 2016, 17 year after that year against Boston, it was crazy because the next year John got injured. John got hurt, and Scotty kind of forced me to become a ball handler. And he's like, you know, I need you to play point. I'm going to force you to do it. And I was turning the ball over, getting double teamed, didn't know how to play through that. And so for the first time, I was kind of into this mindset. I was like, okay, I got to do more than just catch and shoot this thing and come off pin downs and, you know, play like that. I got to be able to, you know, come off a high pick and roll and shoot a 3, right? And be able to be that threat that way. And that's when it started. And the tough part about it is that it takes a hit at your percentage. It's a tougher shot, right? It's not like coming into transition, you know, rhythm 3, getting your feet set. Like, sometimes it's me off balance, like you said, shooting a step back, shooting side steps. Like, it's sometimes off rhythm. Like, it's a tougher shot, but it's necessary in the evolution of your game. And that's a great point. Like, that's what a lot of my threes come from today.
Yeah. Cause for someone that guarded you early in your career, and when you played with John, and this is when John was healthy and at his best, fast as fuck, open court, it was like, where's Brad? And it was like, find Brad, especially in transition. And of course I had to chase your ass off screens, and you chased me off screens too. But like, then later on, and I didn't guard you as much late in my career because I was a terrible defender at that point. I could barely move. But later on, seeing that, like, having to guard you in so many different actions and developing that way. And to your point about Steph, like, I think that's where he has gotten so much better. And I think in some ways, like, James Harden also messed up the game in a good way.
Oh, 100%.
Do you know what I mean by that?
100%.
Because of the ability to shoot threes in ISO.
Shoot threes, ISO, and draw fouls. Like, those are the 3, right? Those are 2 great examples, right? If you're able to be a threat at the 3-point line, like, your defender has to respect that, right? You're always jumping. You're always like, oh, I got to get that. And Steph is a great pass and go cut guy. He's a great
He moves well without the ball, so he doesn't mind giving it up and go. Has a great package, hesitate and dribble. Like he can, he'll hit you with everything. The same with James. And then the ability to be able to manipulate until you draw those fouls. Those are game changers, right? But those are what separate you. And then I think the next level is being able to shoot further out, right? You see Dame, you see Steph, even Trey starting to do it a little bit more, right? If you do that, now, okay, it's like, okay, now it's unfair.
Points, 40 feet.
Now your pickup point is not even a 3-point line. Now we're like volleyball line now. And
have you tried adding that to your game?
Yeah.
The deep three?
Yeah. It's a love-hate thing. It's a love-hate thing for sure. Because it's a crazy shot. It is such a crazy, it's a ballsy shot. It really is.
Do you jump on it, the deep three?
Yeah. But I see it's way more arms.
But that was always my issue with shooting. I mean, I could probably get 3 or 4 feet behind the NBA line, but beyond that, I jumped, and then it just became like
short
every time.
Short.
And that's where I always tell I always tell people this about those 3 guys. So Trey and Steph basically shoot a push shot. They shoot on the way up.
On the way up, yeah.
And they shoot a push shot. And Dame shoots it off his palm.
Yeah.
That's how he's got, I mean, look, these guys have
He has a great
strength.
base, too.
Great base. Dame has one of the best bases in the game. But he shoots it off his palm. So he gets a little more distance off that.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, if I would teach, like, that shooting for him. Because, right, we're taught you jump, you shoot at the top.
Shoot at the top, man.
You follow through, you get elevation. And they shoot different. I think that's what makes them so unique and able to shoot that far away.
For sure. If it works, like Steph doesn't have like the prettiest shot, but it works for him. Like you have a pretty shot. Ray Allen has a pretty shot, like straight. Clay is like robotic. Perfect. It's not even, his is sick. But like Steph is unorthodox. Like he'll shoot it any way. And it's like if it comes off his hand a certain way, he knows it's good. Like those guys are like, he's a unicorn. And then Trey's like the same way, like his little push shot, deep range joints. Like it's like, how is he getting it there? And it's cash every time.
Have you tried any of these in the game? Really?
Not really. If I do, it's like transition where I got some momentum going downhill. Like I'll pull those joints for sure. But half court off a pick and roll,
half
like
court off the dribble,
off like 1-on-1. That's tough.
What's weird too with Dame is like Dame's deep threes and half court, he actually just 1-2s. Like there's not like, you come off a pick and roll and I got this from Jamal, but you do it as well. You kind of like throw the ball out there. It's almost like a self pass. It's when the big isn't dropped, right? You self pass and then you gather momentum.
Yeah.
Or you can hop into it, which also gives you a little bit more momentum and strength. Dame just comes off and he's just like a normal 1-2, like he's shooting from 17 feet.
Like stops on a dime. Your momentum is just driving you downhill and just right into a shot.
Here's what's crazy about the NBA. Was it an Ice Cube song, I think, where he says maybe it was Jay-Z. It was all good just a week ago. It was all good a week ago. Like the NBA, you have so many games in such a short amount of time. Like you could have like a 3 or 4 game stretch, and I'm on a 6 game stretch right now. We're recording this a week before we release it, but I'm on a 6 game stretch right now. I'm literally 6 for 40 in 6 games. Like I've never had a stretch like this before. And then you reflect back and you're like, man, like 2 weeks ago, like I was feeling pretty good about my game. And sometimes in the NBA, it could be like 5 days ago, I felt like I was unstoppable. And then you have 3 game stretches where it can be really frustrating. It can be really frustrating. How did you get out of it? How did you get out of your slump?
I mean, it cuts both ways in that, like, the compounding confidence of when you are feeling good, like you just start to feel like invincible and then everything's going. And you're right, like it can just change like on a whim, and then all of a sudden you just feel like you can't make anything. In terms of how I get out of it, I try my biggest thing, and this is what I tell people when people ask, like, how do you develop consistency, is like I try to treat my like craft of shooting as any sort of habit that I would have. And I'd try to do it every single day the same, so that, you know, whether you have a great game, whether you have a poor game, you're still doing the same things. So at some point it's just going to even out and it's just going to find its level. But like the moment I feel, and I used to do this, like I used to shoot after bad games, I used to do that sort of thing. But like now I feel that the moment you try to like overcompensate is then you're like throwing everything off. You know, it's like, it's almost like, okay, now you need to get extra shots because you missed, you know, you went 1 of 8 or 9. It's like the work you put in beforehand, the habits you were building on a day-to-day basis weren't good enough. So now you need to supplement your work with additional reps. It's like, for me, like consistency is everything in shooting, and that you want everything to be the same every single time, or at least try to, you know, whether that be form or whatever. So that should be the same for your routine. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like it just do the same thing every time.
Right. I've never been an extra shot guy, even when I'm in a slump, because I'm like, I already shoot extra shots. I already do all these extra things to work on it.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that too is, ideally, right, we're the pendulum is like this for shooting, right? A good night is 6 for 10. A bad night is 3 for 10 or 4 for 10, right? You can't expect too many 1 for 10 nights, although I've had a few lately, and you can't expect too many 9 for 10 nights, right?
Yeah.
So the flip side of the argument, you should be getting extra shots up when you're in a slump. Like if you're going 9 for 10, would you go get extra shots up?
Exactly.
No, you trust exactly what you're already been doing for however many weeks or however many months, or, you know, for professionals, however many years. You know, we've been doing this a long time. When did you sort of develop the flair of your game? Was that after going to Real Madrid at 13, or was that even as a young player in Slovenia? In terms of the no-look passes, the behind the back, the step backs, did you have that flair and that shit to your game even back then?
I wouldn't say so, but you know, I think the most underrated part about me is passing. You know, I really like passing. You know, the court vision is something something I even had when I was little. You know, I saw what people are gonna do, how they're gonna guard me, and where the passes go. But I think just through the year, just playing basketball, you know, learning. I didn't really use the step back in Europe, but then I did it like against Houston in my first year, and they say, "Oh, you have a great step back," and since then I've been doing the step back. I didn't really like nobody.
You did it against Houston? Like you did it in the game? You hadn't practiced it really?
No, I never, like before I never really practiced the step back. But since then, like it was like I scored like 3 threes and a 2 against Houston. Like at the end of the game, it was like 3 step backs. And then like everybody said, "Oh, you got the step back." And since then I've been practicing step backs, man. It's been working good.
I have a game question. What are you thinking when you're seeing Dame and Steph in particular? And we talked about this with Dame before on the show about him pulling from deep. But like there's him pulling from deep, and then there's the two of them doing what they did during the game. Are you just sitting there? Like, what's your initial thought when you see that?
I mean, first, how unfair it is, because like how you can't defend that. Like, it's just, I mean, unless you press the guy 94 feet, but then he's probably just going to go by you. And it's just like, I mean, to me, the thing that is like, and we can all shoot from half court, but like we might make 1 out of, 10. And like most of them, we're going to be like way shorter, like, slam the ball against the backboard or something. It's not going to be like a regular jumper. For them, it's just so easy. That's, to me, that's crazy. That is just like a regular jumper. The form doesn't look any different. It doesn't, I mean, I'm sure they have to put a little more strength into it, but you can't really tell. And so, I mean, they made like, each made like 2 or 3 of those in the game. And I mean, honestly, in those moments, you're like a fan, you're just in awe, like, wow, these guys would do it so easily. And I mean, even look at like Steph's 3-point contest. I mean, he missed like the first 4 or 5 shots, and it was like nothing. And, Conley had like 28 or 7. he just went on and made his two 3-point, like the green balls that had this year, and then made all of his 2-point balls, and then he made the last shot to win it. It was just like, I don't know, he just makes it easy. It makes it look so easy. I mean, honestly, as a fan of the game, it's like beautiful to watch. You enjoy watching them shoot the ball that way, and it's just very special. I mean, that's why those guys are so great.
I'm partial, of course, because I'm a shooter myself, not on their level. But those two guys are two of my favorite players ever at this point. If you ask me, like, who would I pay to go watch a basketball game? Play a basketball game? I would absolutely say Dame and Steph. KD would be there too. Maybe Vooch at number 4, but like Dame and Steph to me, and to your point, it just looks so effortless. I asked Dame, we played them earlier this year, and he came out in the first quarter and he made like 2 35-footers contested on the move. And I'm like, yo, like, how do you do that? Like, is that a thing you practice? Is that your hips? Is your core? Whatever. And he broke it down for me. He went through his exercises he does. But the big thing was, he says at the end of every workout, he actually practices those shots when he's the most tired. So he feels like when he's in a game and he's fresh, he can make those shots. But to do what he does, both those guys, is just, it's ridiculous.
And even the shot he made against OKC, I mean, who takes that? Like, who takes a step back, whatever, 3? And it's like, to your right hand, it's like, usually it's harder for right-handed shooters to, like, in a playoff series, like, to win the series, and you just like so confidently take it. To me, I mean, confidence, I think, has to have a huge part in it as well. But I mean, to me, that was one of the most amazing shots I've seen in my life when I saw it. We had just lost to Toronto, and we were watching last few minutes of the game, and he took that shot, and I just like stood there and like staring at the TV, and I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, this isn't like normal. This doesn't just happen like that.
Well, I think too, it's the confidence, it's the stones, right? You got to have some stones there. But both those guys, to me, are so clear-headed when they play. I'm sure you've heard like the phrase, like, play clutter-free basketball. Both those guys just play clutter-free basketball. Like, you can't have any hesitancy in your brain to shoot a shot like that because your body won't respond. You need 100% of it. You need 100% of your body. So your brain has to be like, no, this is a good shot. It has to tell your body that. And those guys they've mastered that. It's really awesome. I want to ask you about some things that have changed in the NBA, because I feel like you have a unique perspective on that. I obviously
came in at an interesting time.
I came in
right there at the perfect time.
I came in 2006, and you were 12.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously played 2 years now since I retired, so you have a different perspective than I do. The first thing is sort of the 3-point revolution.
Yeah.
Because people talk about the Phoenix Suns and like my Orlando Magic teams, but really it was like you, Steph, and James that changed this whole paradigm. And I looked it up. You averaged 6.1 threes per year your rookie year, which was a fucking lot.
That's
back
a lot.
Then. You're at 11.3 threes per game this year attempted. You've had 3 years shooting 10 or more. Last year, I think you were just under 10 before you got hurt. When did you feel like that was acceptable to shoot an average 10 threes a game? What sort of changed in this time period?
I would say probably about 3, 4 years ago. That's when I started to be like, okay, you can't win if you're not shooting threes, because everybody's shooting threes, and if they're making threes and you're constantly making 2, like, you're not going to, it's easy math. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember coming in and seeing, like, I forget who we was playing against a couple years ago, and they shooting 35 threes every game. It was the Rockets, I think.
It was the Rockets.
Or 40 threes, maybe. They was like, they don't shoot mid-range. They going to get to the rim or they going to shoot threes. And I remember we played them one game, and I was like, we stand in front of them. Like, and James is shooting step backs. He get, pick and roll. Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker. He's just kicking it out. They're literally not shooting anything but lobs to Capella, transition at the rim, or just threes. And for us, we like, me and CJ coming off pick and roll, step back mid-range, like
float game.
Floaters, pocket pass, layups, getting fouled, going to the line. But I'm looking up there and I'm like, how are we down by 17? Like this don't feel like a bad game, but they just, when you really think about it, it's like they forcing people's hands. So now everybody, the bigs are wanting to be able to shoot now to stay on the floor. So everybody's shooting more threes. You can't win without doing it.
I had the literal exact same experience my last year with the Clippers, where we're playing a game against the Rockets and we're down 11 in the third quarter. And we go down and we score on like 3 or 4 possessions or 4 or 5 possessions, like CP on the left block doing his little jab game to a mid-range, Blake shooting a mid-range shot. And Rockets are scoring as well, but they're scoring threes. And all of a sudden I looked up and it was like, we're just down 11. How the fuck are we down 16 now?
Yeah.
And Joe Mazzulla this weekend, man, like credit to him because he's really emphasized this with this year's Boston Celtics team. I mean, you look at the numbers, they're threes per game, makes per game, assist percentage all up. It's like good to great, good to great, good to great.
They're like top of the league and Tim Sam makes second and Tim Sam makes.
Yeah. And he was talking, I had their Friday game against Brooklyn. I had their Sunday game against the Knicks. And he said on Friday, he's like, we got outmathed. We got outmathed that game. And
that's crazy.
And I get the gripe that some older basketball fans have with this era, but you're not going to win by playing the old way.
Can't win that
It's
way.
a math equation, and you're not going to win.
You can play that way, but everybody's going to beat you. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you may not like it, but if you're going to play or coach in this league, you got to play by those rules or you can't win. So that's it.
I think going into my second year, I move up in the scouting report. There's going to be better defenders on me and stuff. So just looking forward to taking on that challenge.
The obvious next question for me when you talk about taking a next step is, have you started jumping on your three-point jump shot?
I have not.
For those that don't know,
Will you start?
Tyrese jumps on any shot inside the three-point arc, and then he takes about 3 seconds on a set shot to shoot behind the arc.
I jump.
I didn't even know you jumped till we played you in person.
No, I jump when I shoot, don't I? Yes, I do. I get like this high off the
This
ground.
This is a really funny way to find this out.
It's a jump. I jump. I don't jump.
You and I have texted about this. We've texted about this.
I jump.
Okay.
Tyrese, the thing you have to understand.
You don't shoot a free throw from the three-point line.
I don't physically have the upper body strength to not jump. I have to jump a little bit. I have to.
To develop that range, again, because, you didn't shoot threes in college three-point lines inside the NBA line. Did you have to change anything in terms of your form, your balance, your lower body, or was it just simply a matter of getting the reps up?
In terms of form, no. Reps, of course, a million reps. Just keep shooting. But in all the things I changed were my feet and my hands on my follow through and in my shot. Sometimes I didn't entirely hold the ball, right, and sometimes I didn't. I would leave my shooting hand here instead of me and my coach CJ always tells me to shake hands with the ball, right? So when I'm done shooting, my hands should shake hands, right, or in a way, right, in a basketball way. And then again, more so with my feet, learning whether I'm a hop jumper or I'm a 1-2 guy. And I felt like, and what I figured out was I'm both, but in different areas of the court, I'm better, right? So going right, I'm better hopping, and going left, I'm better 1-2ing. The other way around, right? But
right.
That's more so where I needed to figure out the game, because I felt like the touch was there and I my depth perception was there, but it was just a matter of figuring out the small things. And I'm still working on that now. Still trying to polish it out. Shooting is an everyday thing. Like today, I probably got however many shots again, but it's polishing. You gotta stay polished.
See, I love hearing this because to me, as important as the reps are and as important as your form, when people think about form, they're generally thinking about the upper body. But the footwork as a shooter is as important as anything else. And I mean, I was 15 years into my career and I was still working on different spots on the floor, knowing, hey, on this spot on the floor, I'm better left, right, or on this spot on the floor, I'm better as a hop. So let me work on the other way. And it's literally a lifelong journey trying to figure that out. I just feel like with shooting, there's always room for improvement because shooting is such a rhythmic thing. It's mechanical. There's muscle memory involved. And so practicing all of those shots using different footwork was one of the most important things that I learned very early. I learned that in high school and I still did it and I still worked on it 15 years into my career.
You know, another thing about you too is you were like you shot off the dribble or off the run, moving shots. You know, like you were really good at that. I haven't even started to get into that range yet. I'm just talking about like catch and shoot, right? You know, or catching in rhythm or running into the shot out off of a drag. So again, there's a whole nother layer, right, of coming off of a screen and being able to fire it, right? Because I'm stationary, but you were firing it while moving. You know, having that little twerk or twitch, however you say it, to your shot, like that takes more time and reps than people can account for. How easy you make it look, or you make it look. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work, man.
Some of us make it look easy.
So I don't want to get too much in that. There's two plays I want to talk about though, which happened within a month of each other in 2014.
Okay.
So the first is wearing the baby blues with the t-shirts in Golden State. I think it's Matt Barnes, Chris Paul, Spencer Hawes, DeAndre Jordan. I'm shouting out all my guys, and you literally dribbled through them.
Oh, that was my. Yeah.
And Jeff Van Gundy on the broadcast is like, I think that's the best move I've ever seen.
That could be the greatest move I've ever seen.
It didn't make any sense because all those guys that are out there, they're like in one section of the court right at the top of the key. And then there's four of us like above the 3-point line. So just so much traffic. And Bogut swings it to, or I think Draymond swung it to me and Bogut set like this weird screen. And you just go into autopilot. Like you have no, I know there was four people there, but you don't like every move I did was perfect. And it just came off. Went between, behind, like CP tried to swipe at it, and I didn't even feel him. And to all that point, like you see, my favorite thing is Coach Kerr was trying to instill like discipline in our offense and always move it, get good shot to great shot, and the whole deal. So I do this whole move, and they got the camera on him, and he's like, as I'm turning around to shoot, because Clay's wide open on the right wing, and the right play is to kick it to him, but I'm just in autopilot, and I make it, and he walks back to the bench, and actually Draymond's behind me and he's pointing at Clay like pass it to him. So somebody sent me that clip afterwards, and when Jeff said that, I was crying laughing on the way home. He said that might be the
greatest move I've ever seen. My two favorite plays, selfishly, the first one is the fact that I was on the court, but I was not one of the guys that you dribbled through. I was in the corner guarding Harrison. And I was like, oh shit. Second part of that was any rational human being, and I mean this sincerely, like any rational human being that would be willing to try a move like that and dribble through four people and then safely make it through that obstacle course with their back turned to the basket would pick the ball up. Thank God they didn't turn it over and move the ball. And you were willing to double down. You were willing to double down.